Hey everyone, James from TeaDB here, bringing you a Inbetweenisode. So today is the much called for Teaware Inbetweenisode. We definitely get a disproportionate amount of questions on Teaware for the amount we actually focus on Teaware. And so whenever I sort of solicit episode ideas and that sort of thing, there's always a lot of requests to do like side-by-sides with Teaware. And just answer a bunch of questions on different types of clay and stuff like that. It tends not to be our number one focus on the show, but wanted to do at least a little bit of that stuff and honor some of those requests and give it justice. So first going to just talk a little generally about Teaware, then I'm going to just sort of show you my Teaware, which was a suggestion from Jugpan, so thank you Jugpan for that episode suggestion. And then I'm going to answer the questions about Teaware that were asked for the Q&A episode. I ended up answering just the questions that focused on more that were more T-centric in that episode, but wanted to include a few of the Teaware ones, or all of the Teaware ones in this one. I am not a huge Teaware person or a teapot person. I will show you my teapots. I own 6 clay teapots. I counted them right before doing this, or 6 Ishin clay teapots. And I used to own a couple more. I don't even know if I've ever owned as many as 10. I sold a couple. I am not someone that collects a ton of teapots. For me, they are the ones that I do use get pretty heavy use. I probably use a teapot 5 or 6 days, if I'm excluding this one, out of 7. If I include this, then we're talking probably 7 out of 7 days. So I do use them very often. This teapot probably gets my most use. It's my semi-aged shung pot. I have 2 semi-aged shung pots, but this tends to be what I use. I'll show you the rest of my Teaware in the next segment of the video and talk a little bit about it. I do use pots often, but I don't own a ton. I think when it comes to just making good quality tea, I don't think you need to spend thousands of dollars on Teawares. That's personally my opinion. I think you can certainly make do with just a couple pots, a gaiwan, and a couple decent cups that you like drinking out of. I'll talk a little bit more about sort of the Teaware that I use on a daily basis. Again, I don't think you need to spend all that much money. Most of the Teaware I bought was definitely under $20, and most of it under 10, other than something like the teapot. So let's see my Teaware now. All right, so here we are looking at my Teaware here. So first up are my teapots. So these are my clay teapots specifically. So you could see a number here. I'm going to pull this out. So kind of at the front, we have the teapot I'm fussing with now, which is my aged oolong pot. That's my ripe pot. The jian shui, I don't use all that much. I think I use that for raw pour. At the back, traditionally stored, semi-aged pot. So just kind of a wide variety. Most of the ones I like to use are around 100 milliliters. The ripe one's just a little bit bigger, and I do have a couple smaller ones that are about 60 milliliters, which, sounds like a good idea, but honestly, it's like, I don't know how required that is. So over here, I have a couple of these just sort of tins that I'm using to just sort of have easy access to a couple different teas, usually traditionally stored ones, so I'll break off a bunch from a cake and then drink that way. My much neglected Japanese tea stuff, one of those, or a couple of those were gifts rather. I did buy that green pot, I believe from Dense Tea, quite a while ago, used in my maybe once a year Japanese tea stuff. Okay, so now I'm looking at the bottom shelf. You can see a few more tins. On the left, here are some more tins. Bovetta packs, which I buy maybe once every year and a half or so, and that's how I will provide humidity to my humidors. Tons of cups, just lots of cups. You're into tea for long enough, you're just going to get these things. I'm not even sure if I bought I bought some of those like really basic white cups, but most of those I've just kind of happened into. Gaiwans, those two on the right are little small ones I bought locally for just under $10, like $5 or $6, I believe. And just nice flexible devices. A couple of unstained Gongdao bays. All right, and then last up, we're looking at here's my compost bowl. And then I really like these two trays. I use them. I like to have a second one so I can put a cake on that while I unwrap it and sort of pick at the unwrapped cake there. My scale and the little device to put on the scale. And then that black tin is what I use for ripe. So that's probably my most accessed tin there. So I'll be probably breaking up ripe once a week or so. And here's my tea tray with two of my most used teapots. Okay, so thank you again to everyone who sent in questions. I look forward to answering this. Okay, so this first one is not one I'm personally going to answer, but we had a really nice response in the comment section as well. It's from Mobile. I know Japanese tea isn't really your area of interest, but regarding a kyushu, which is a Japanese teapot, do you know if it functions similar to Ishin and that you should only use it for one type of tea for that pot? Any recommendations for or against brewing Japanese tea in a kyushu versus other methods? I kind of feel like it wouldn't be a great idea to brew hojicha and gyokudo in the same pot, for example, but I don't know. All right, so Andrew Carrier's response, which is better than what I could probably respond with, says, you can get away with it for a bit because Japanese pots are typically much more highly fired than Chinese pots, but after a while, they will begin to take on the flavors of the tea, just much more slowly than, say, in Nishin. I have a few tokoname and banko teapots that I only use for sencha, plus a shibora dashi that I use for gyokudo, and a separate glazed kyushu that I use to brew all other Japanese teas in, like hojicha, genmatcha, bancha, and other Japanese black teas. Okay, good response. I don't have too much more to add. I don't drink a ton of Japanese teas. It's literally maybe once or twice a year sort of thing. I don't even know if I brewed Japanese teas once in 2020. So I just use a big blue kyushu that I think was probably shown in the Teaware part of this. So hopefully you all saw that. Okay. So this one's from Chaseth. For someone looking to upgrade their tea experience from a gaiwan to a clay pot, what do you recommend? That's a good question. Where would I buy a teapot? I haven't bought a teapot in probably 6 years, 5 years, 6 years. I'm friends with Emilio of the Jade Leaf. I do like his work. I have a Peter Novak Shibo, which was a gift. Definitely like that. But I guess those aren't pots. Who sells pots these days? I don't know. You could definitely get some nice, some okay enough pots from a lot of different vendors, such as like Yunnan Sourcing. I don't even know if White Tea sells teapots these days. Essence of Tea always has some pots. That's probably a good place to look. And Stefan Erler of Tea Masters, he might have a couple pots too. I don't know if I have any recommendations I'd rank way above the others. I guess probably Essence of Tea, depending on what they're sourcing right now. Most of my pots came from Origin Tea back when they were in business, but that was quite some time ago, so can't exactly give that recommendation. All right, so this one comes from Luke Savor. Hey, James would like to know more about your shui ping dedicated to semi-aged shang. That would be this. Source of purchase, is it Green Label, Factory 1, Wet Clay, Juni, Hongni, or Qing Shuini? I know the brown purple clays are more suited for aged and natural or wet stored pour. What's your opinion regarding that? The same question goes about your other pots for show and mature pour. What clay type? So this is a Factory 1 Qing Shuini. It came with the green label, so that green sticker that says Factory 1. Got it from Origin Tea, again, like 6-7 years ago. Definitely my most used pot. Let's see, what else? what do I use for aged and wet stored pour? I don't know the exact clay type of this. This is what I used for more aged and wet stored pour. So it's definitely a darker clay. I don't think it's actually Haney though, which is like the black clay. And you know, there's a lot of really strong opinions when it comes to Teaware. I am not someone that has particularly strong opinions of Teaware. I don't spend a lot of time focusing on it or thinking about it. For me personally, I do tend to think that the clay type probably matters, but probably also gets fairly overrated. It's something that, you know, you look at it and you can see the clay. There's one really good blog post by Marshallin that has been a reference for me. He's also just a really good source on Teaware, so I definitely recommend people check out Marshallin and click on that Teaware tag on his page. But the post I'm referencing is a article called "Things That Matter and Things That Don't." He talks a little bit about things that I think get a little underrated in terms of clay teapots. Things like pouring, how long it takes to pour. What else is there? And also talks about things that maybe people overrate a little bit more, like lid fit. And I do believe the clay type was something that matters less than probably people think, at least according to this article. So, yeah, not something I think about constantly and worry about pairing the exact type of clay to that. Not that I don't think it matters, it just doesn't. For me, it's been a long time since I've paired teapots with anything too. So, and when I have, I've tended to buy it and then try the tea out and see how it functions. Get a lot of reps on it before sort of deciding what it does. And a lot of that also just comes down to the basic characteristics of it. Does it clog easily? Are you going to need a fast pour out of it? And that sort of thing. So sorry, that's a little bit of a rambling answer. Long story short, read Marshall and read that article specifically. Okay, this one's from Devin Patel. Over the years, do you have a deeper understanding how to use experience with your clay pots? I mean, yeah, you definitely get more practice and skill through repetition. I mean, some of that's going to come naturally too, just through the sheer thing of doing it. I don't know if there's any like big takeaways I can vocalize. I guess generally speaking, if I'm concerned with overbrewing a tea, I'll brew it in something that's I can get the liquid out very fast, or such as a Gaiwan or a Shibo. But if I'm more concerned with just like getting a fuller experience, deeper, I usually tend to prefer teas coming from a clay pot. So I'm also someone that likes darker teas, and I do feel like clay pots do benefit darker teas more. Not sure if that's a deeper understanding I've acquired through the years, so much as just an basic observation. Have your preferences in brew ratio or kung fu style changed as you step closer to becoming a tea leaf? Maybe I just brew slightly harder than I did 6-7 years ago. Again, hard to say. I used to brew a lot more in Shibos and Gaiwans back when I was sampling more teas, but these days I'm mainly just drinking one tea a day plus some ripe with my wife and just a little bit throughout the day. So I feel less of the need to reduce the amount of tea I consume by using smaller vessels. Alright, so this one's from Vincent. I have some brown and gray Asian clay, but I heard purple is best. Is that nonsense? Does it matter? Again, I'd refer Vincent to the things that matter and things that don't. I think anyone that's saying that one type of clay is just terrible without like looking at the actual specimen sounds like nonsense to me, but I don't know. I'm not an expert. Nathaniel says, I have a question for a future Q&A or Inbetweenisode. Have you noticed a difference in taste, body, aroma, chi, etc. when using different shaped cups or cups made from different materials? Well, I can't say I've noticed a huge impact in terms of chi or energy. Again, that's a hard one to make too. And when it comes to chi and energy, it's also really hard to do a side-by-side because it can be difficult to decide which one you're crediting to which tea or which cup, I guess. So I'm personally kind of skeptical that it would impact the energy. However, I do think it does impact the rest of those things, the taste, body, even the aroma. If we think about just like how in Taiwanese Kung Fu, they have a separate aroma cup, which is like long and narrow, and it serves a different function than a cup that you are drinking out of. So again, it's not something I have studied in any sort of deepness, but I do tend to like cups that, for pu'er especially, that are a little bigger. I don't tend to care for the really small cups, so the 30, 40 milliliter cups are not my favorite. Part of that is just because it's less pouring and less work to just drink out of something larger, but I think there's something more to it than that too, just in the sense that I feel like things like maybe the thickness and the body and stuff of it comes off a little more, and maybe that's just because I'm consuming more tea per slurp versus a smaller cup. So I don't really know what the scientific reason for that would be, but I have found that I do tend to prefer drinking out of at least mid-sized cups. So Nathaniel goes ahead and says, I have 2 cups I primarily use. One is wider and shorter, made of nice porcelain, very thin, and only holds maybe 30 to 40 milliliters. The other is taller, not as wide, and basically a sake cup and much thicker, and holds close to double, approximately 70 milliliters. I find the thinner and more shallow porcelain cup makes my semi-aged pu'er taste way better, body, aroma, etc. This is something you've experienced. That I remember Marshall talking about something like this once, but I haven't found that post yet. Still looking. Anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. If you think there's something to it, maybe a test of sorts. So yeah, I do feel there's a difference in mouthfeel and texture. Haven't done any big tests on this yet. In general, I mean, I guess intuitively I would think something long and thin like that. I think that'd be closer to a sake cup that looks kind of like an aroma cup in that sense. So maybe that's good as a method of sort of concentrating the aroma to smell the tea, especially like when you think about like just sort of smelling the remnants of it afterwards. Definitely part of an appreciation of tea, especially when it comes to not pu'er, but things like oolong. So yeah, those are that's my intuitive answer on this. Again, I don't have the well-researched answer to a lot of this. It's more just kind of how my quick takes on these, I should say. Okay, all right, so I think that is basically all the questions there were. So thank you again to all the different questions. Hopefully this episode was satisfying enough for people that want answers. Again, I can't recommend Marshall and site enough on Teaware, especially that post. Definitely read him on all things pots. He is someone that owns a lot of pots too, so he is in general a much more experienced hand and great resource before it comes to that. For me, I personally like to keep things simple, just use a couple pots, and instead my hoarding is reserved for my tea. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. Let me know what sort of thing you're looking for next. Hope everyone is staying safe out there. And I apologize for the lack of episodes. Denny and I have sort of decided, with the cases rising and stuff, I'm filming this in mid-November, that we would hold off on getting together and filming until sometime in the future. So thank you all for tuning in. I will see you all next time. Cheers.